Mishnah, page 39. We continue our discussion in regards to tchumin, the limitation of festival, and items. One item is the coal, and the other one is a flame. What happened? People borrow from other people. So you have one status, which is you're taking a coal, you borrow it, or if you're taking a transfer of flame. So the Mishnah said, "Hagachelet kiraglei ba'alim v'shalehevet b'chol makom." A coal that one borrowed from another on a festival, then we take it as the feet of the owner. So you can carry it any place, as long as the owner can go there. Versus flame, so one who transfer flame from one to another, so that's, you have no limitation for the first one. Why? Because it's not davar sheyesh bo mamash, it's nothing that it's substantial by itself, it's just a flame, and therefore the whole limitation, it's not applicable. Another point, gachelet shel hekdesh, if you take a coal that belongs to a consecrated property, so anything that was dedicated to Beit HaMikdash or to be offered on the altar, it's entitled, it's called consecrated property. So if you take a coal, mo'alimba, so if someone use it for other purposes, for example, he warmed by that, he cooked with that, baked by that, so here is a misuse of consecrated property, and if it was unintentional, you need to bring an offering for that. It's called Hasham Meilot. V'shalhevet lo nehenim. However, when it's come to a flame, it's not applied. The whole idea of you cannot use it to do what? For example, to lighting another candle from that. Velo mo'alim. So if someone did it, he doesn't need to bring an offering. Why? Because it doesn't carry a substantial, it's just a flame. Third point of the Mishnah, hamotzim gachelet l'rshut harabim. Here we talk about Shabbat. If one takes out a call from a private domain to a public domain on Shabbat, chayav, he is liable because he carried from one domain to another. It's prohibited labor. Shalhevet patur. But if it's flame, it's exempt because it doesn't have any substantial meaning, right? And therefore, you're not in a violation of taking it from one domain to another. So the Gemarrah later explains how you can take the shalhevet, which is the flame, without being chayav, being in the issue of carrying it from one domain to another. So that's the subject that we discuss in the following Gemara. Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis tells us 5 category of difference between coal and a flame in regards to halachot. 5 דברים נאמרו בגחלת. There are 5 different points we'll discuss in halacha in regards to a coal. 1. הגחלת כרגלי הבעלים ושלהבת בכל מקום. As we said, coal is like the feet of the owner when it's come to a place, a location, a festival. Flame carry anywhere. 2. גחלת של הקדש מועלים בה ושלהבת לא נהנים ולא מועלים. Again, this is something that we already discussed. One who's liable of misusing property consecrated in the Beit HaMikdash with the consecrated coal, but the flame, Rabbi said that the person cannot benefit from it, but he is not liable for misuse of property of consecrated item of the Beit HaMikdash. Number 3, גחלת של עבודה זרה. So the Gemara explained to us, and it's also, you see it in the code in Yoreh De'ah, Kuf Membet 142. For example, if they use something for, the Shita Mekubet said, for offering of idol, and you take the coal that left over from that, so he said, Mu'alimba, if it was coal that used for idol worship, it's prohibited for one to benefit from her, asura, v'shalhevet muteret, but if a flame, in that case, is permitted to benefit. Obviously, we understand why. It's not the flame, it doesn't carry any substantial item. Ein ba mamash. Number 4. המוציא גחלת ברשות הרבים חייב שלהבת פטור. As we said earlier, one who carries a coal from private to public domain on Shabbat is liable because it's in a violation of prohibited labor on Shabbat. But if someone carries only a flame, exempt. המודר הנאה מחברו, one is prohibited by vow from deriving benefit from another. So, אסור בגחלתו ומותר בשעוולתו. So, if a person said, Mr. Reuben said, I'll not have anything to do with Shimon. So when it's come to something substantial, such as coal, he cannot borrow or take or do anything from him. Versus if it's flame, that doesn't carry a value or anything, then he still can have it from his fellow. So the Gemara asks, מה ישנה שלהבת עבודה זרה דשאר, מה ישנה דהקדש דאסירה? Why you differentiate between a flame that made by the idol worshippers, that you're allowed to derive benefit, versus, to derive benefit from that, versus that if you have a flame from a consecrated property that's prohibited? Why it's different? So Gemara said, Avodah zara dim isa ubdilein shemen elo gazru rabanan. Since the people are disgusted by the idol worshipping and people stay away from that, so the sages doesn't put a special boundary, a special decree to prohibit the benefit of that. Hekdesh de lo mais versus something that it's consecrated property, that which is not repulsive, from which people do not inherently maintain separation. So since people not separate in order to prevent its misuse, so therefore the rabbis not have a decree that prohibited the flame. We said if someone did on Shabbat carries a coal from private to public domain, he is in violation of carrying a prohibited labor on Shabbat, versus if it's a flame is exempt. V'atanya mutzi shalhevet kol shu chayav. We learn now the brighter the opposite, that even someone carries a small flame is in violation of prohibited labor on Shabbat. He used a wooden chip to do it. So the flame is attached to a physical object, so then it's significant. So you derive that one is liable because it's a wooden chip, the Tnan. We learn Mishnah in Tractate Shabbat, page 89. המוציא עצים כדי לבשל בהם ביצה קלה, one who carries out wood on Shabbat in order to cook an egg, even lighten cook. So you have to say that will hold by the wooden chip. It doesn't have this problem, but the idea of carrying the flame. Abaye Amar כגון שייפי, he tried to reconcile that contradiction. Mana mishcha, he put this oil, he smear the vessel with that, ve'itle beinura, and all of a sudden the fire on it, and carry out that flame. So therefore, the Mishnah talk about something that is not contact with. V'teipuk le mishum mana. So you have to, maybe it's because due to a vessel, that your vessel itself you cannot carry. So you have to say no bechaspa. The idea is earthware. So it's broken earthware. So you don't have, only carries the flame. V'tepukle mishum chaspa. So you say that one liable for carry due to the earthware shard itself, but leilat shura. It doesn't have the measure that you benefit on Shabbat. How? Because we learn in the Mishnah, Tractate Shabbat, page 82, Cheres kidei litet bein patzim lechavero. If you have an earthware enough, the place one window frame and another. So he said that's the liability of carrying, Divra Biyuda. So if it's less than that, you don't have the he doesn't carry the obligation in that small earthware. Now what we learn in the Mishnah, that Amutzi Shalevet Patur, one who carries out a flame, is exempt. So in what type of case we're speaking here? You mean to say that there is a case that the flame is not attached to anything? He says, Kegon de adya aduye lirshut harabim. In other words, the flame is running up the end of a private domain, and a person blew to that flame until that flame ran and reached the public domain. So without it's been attached to any vessel. Now how about the water that you pull out of a well on a festival? So the Mishnah said, Bor shel yachid. If you have a cistern that belongs to an individual, so keraglei ayachid, the water drawn from it is the feet of individual who owns the cistern, and the water may be carried only to those places where the owner is permitted to walk. V'shel anshe otayir, but if it's in partnership that belongs to everyone in the city, so therefore all this water that drowned on a festival, kiraglei anshe ha'ir, which is 2,000 cubits to every location. There's a big discussion if that applied to people on the city or also people who visit from others. It's a discussion among Rashba, Ran, and others. If you go by the Breira or not Breira, if you go that the retroactive act or not. V'shel olei Bavel. Okay, so you say Shel olei Bavel. It was a time that they dig a special well for the traveler that came from Babylon. They made Aliyah, they ascend to Eretz Israel. So that's for use of travelers. So since it's used for the traveler, so the Rashi and the Ran said, Kiraglei amemale. So it's like the feet of the owners fill the vessel with the water. And the water is no defined boundary of its own, since it's made available to everyone, all those people who travel. So therefore, if someone drowned the water, he has the kinyan hagbaha, he has the acquisition, because he uplifted that. Imagine those days a person put inside the well and he pull out the water. So therefore, if he carries it by himself is one category, but if he gives it to another person, so then a person cannot carry that outside of the domain. Now we see contradiction. Rami l'Rav l'Rav Nachman. Tnan bo shel yachid keraglei yachid. We learn in one braita that the cistern of individual is the feet of the individual, and the other v'raminu ne'arot hamoshchim. If you have a water that drown from the flowing rivers, umayonot hanof'in, and flowing springs, so they said aren kiraglei kol adam, it's like the feet of all people. So there's no limitation of that water. So if the water is drowned on the festival, everyone can carry that in his domain, because they are a spring flowing water, and the beginning of the festival is already moved, so therefore they don't have mekom shvita, they don't have a permanent place, and therefore you see that the water of the cistern during the festival, they're not circumscribed, they're not limited to any domain, and that's unlike the Mishnah teaches. So they said Amar, and some said Rava, some said Rabbah. Acha b'may askinan. Here what we're talking about, bimchunasin, collected water. So it's not a source of the spring flowing water, and since at the beginning of the festival the water are not moving, so therefore they have a domain, that's follow the Mishnah. But the Beitzah speaks about the flowing water, that they flow at the beginning of the festival, and therefore they don't have a limited of the domain. The same, collected water. Mishnah said, Shel ole Bavel, the water drawn for from the cistern for those who came up from Babylon to Eretz Israel, which is a public cistern, the feet of whoever is pouring out the water. If a person filled up and he gave it to his fellow, Rav Nachman amar Rav Nachman said, so that is the feet of one for whom they were filled. Rav Sheshet amar kegarle memale. Rav Sheshet said it's like the feet of one who filled it. So, b'maika mifligei, what point the dispute of Nachman Rav Sheshet? Mar savar beira de efkirau, mar savar beira de shutafehu. One sage, Rav Sheshet, holds that the public cistern is ownerless, so you can take possession of ownerless property. And Rav Nachman holds that the public cistern considered jointly owned by all the partners, and therefore, since everyone can use it, so one person can do it for the others, and the time that he drowned the water acquired to his fellow, and he's obligated for that. So, side note, it reminds me something that John sent me. He sent me a site that shows what they did in one of those Israeli gas stations. They're selling, they have those convenience stores in a gas station. So the Israeli television, what they do, he forwarded to me, they try to show that conducted of an average person. So they show, they hire a few actors, and one pretend to be an Arab. A lady, she carries a veil and everything, and it was a hidden camera inside, and the guy, the actor, who's is selling coffee or whatever it is in a convenience store, he look at her and says, "Sorry, I'm not selling to an Arab." And they want to see what other customer, how they react to that. So you see most of the customers said, "Excuse me, sir, why don't sell? Oh, I'm not selling to." Okay, give me the money, I'll buy it for you. That's typical reaction of people. And for sure they analyze it, etc., etc. But the idea is, it's very common among people that they ask someone to do partner or to do it for them, and therefore, back to our subject, sometimes you go by the partnership, sometimes you go by this, declare that it's ownerless that well. He now brings a source from Tractate Nedarim, page 47b. If someone said to his fellow, Hareini alecha cherem, I am hereby prohibited to you by force of cherem, which means that there is this type of vow or prohibition, an object declared as cherem as generally consecrated to the Beit HaMikdash. Hamudar asur, the one prohibited by the vow, the addressee is prohibited to derive benefit from the person who made the vow or from his property. So because it's basically that's called isu hana'ah. You cannot derive anything from the one who take the vow. 39. Hare ata alai cherem. If he said to him, you are hereby prohibited to me by force of cherem, so meaning that you, money, is prohibited to derive benefit on me, and it's like a consecrated property. Hanoder asur, the one who making vow, is himself prohibited to derive benefit from the addressee or from the property. Hareini alecha ve'ata alai. If he made it, you are prohibited to you, and you are to me by force of cherem. So they said, Shnehem asurim ze bazeh. They are both prohibited to benefit from one another. Umutarim b'shel olei Bavel. And they are permitted to benefit for anything belonging to those who come from Bavel, which is again public property that is not owned by any person or group. Va'asurim b'shel ota ir. But they are prohibited to benefit from something that inhabited to that city. Why? Because they have a share in such item. Ve'elu em dvarim sholei Bavel. Here is the list of items that for those publicly owned by the people who come from Babylon. Har habayit, temple mount, that you have the Beit HaMikdash there. Haleshachot, the chamber in Beit HaMikdash. Ve'azarot, in the courtyard in the temple mount. Ubor shel emtza derech, that's what we mentioned earlier, the cistern situated in the middle of the road between Babylon to Eretz Israel, and not inside cities. Ve'elu hen shel ota ir, and these are items jointly owned by the inhabitant of that city. Harechov, the street, ubeit hakneset, and the shul, the synagogue, ubeit hamerchatz, and the bathhouse. So now, earlier Rav Nachman said that someone who draw water on the festival from a cistern that belonged to Babylon for his fellow, so that's basically all the tchum of his fellow, the domain of his fellow. Why? So now we understand, because this cistern belongs to everyone jointly. So therefore, it belongs to everyone, so his fellow is partner in that. Vi amart, and if you tell me that beira de shutafeu, that this cistern for those who come from Babylon, they are in a public cistern, which means that it's jointly owned by partners, by all the Jewish people. Amai mutar, why it should be permitted for the one who made the vow and addressed it for the use. Ve'atnan, we learn different Mishnah, Tractate Nedarim, page 45. Hashutafin shenadru anazeh mizeh, you have a partners, and two partners who took a vow not to derive benefit from one another. Asurim likanes lechatzer, they are prohibited to enter a joint courtyard, which means that they have both together. So it means here that what the Mishnah said, that they allow this cistern of the Babylonian for those who basically make this prohibition against each other, it's not considering a partnership of this cistern, but only as an ownerless cistern. So Rav Nachman respond, and he said, "Lirchotz babo." So they are prohibited to wash themselves in a cistern because they are baiting one uses of all the water of the cistern, part of which belong to the forbidden partner. Here too. So it's prohibited because it's joint ownership. So if he's basically used that water, he's using for some water that prohibited upon him. So then when the Mishnah allow it, they did not meant every use, because they cannot use the water when it's that cistern, for example, to use it as a bath. And here what we're talking, we're dealing here about lemalot, to filling water from the cistern. It's permitted because it's considered mar mididei kamale, mar mididei kamale. Each one take from one feels his portion, the other one feels for his portion. So in other words, this is, you can go by the Breibra, that you go by a retroactive act. So when Reuven pulled the water from inside, it meant to say that that's his partnership of the water. So therefore, it never happened that they used the water that belonged to someone, that they took a vow upon themselves not to use from someone else. Savar Rav Nachman, yesh brera. So Rav Nachman hold, v'savar Rav Nachman yesh brera. Does Rav Nachman hold that there is a retroactive designation? But we learn in the Mishnah, the beginning of Tractate Shkalim, if you remember, we learn it together here. V'atnana achina shutafim. You have a brothers that they have inherited, and they divided the inherited property. Kshechayavim bekalbon, when they're obligated to add a kalbon, which is a small coin, which is, again, it's the same way as they give the machzit shekel for themselves, and they join together, they have to add kalbon, so even that they put it in the partnership of both, so that's basically a small coin to the obligatory half shekel yearly temple donation. So that's kalbon covered both the cost to the temple exchanging half shekels into a large coin, and to the depreciation of the donated coin. So that's this small amount. The question is, pturim memaaser be'ema, and they are exempt from the animal type. That the whole idea is that by halakha, that the people who own the animal in partnership are exempt from animal type. וכשחייבים במעשר בהמה, and when they are liable to animal type, פטורים מן הכלבון, they are exempt from kalbon. That the whole idea is that the father who contributes a single shekel for his own dependent sons does not need to add the kalbon. So that's basically, you see, that the father is like donate for them. ואמר רבנן לא שנו אלא שחלקו גדיים כנגד טלאים וטלאים כנגד טלאים. That's apply only when they divided kids against the lambs and lamb against the kids, so which means if one brother took kids and another took a corresponding value of a lamb. So when you have this type of the division, it's a commercial transactions, where with one another purchasing goats and paying for them with the lamb and the other vice versa. But but if they have the same kids against kids, or lamb against lambs, which means they have exact equal portion between all the brothers, like you read it in Parshat Vayetze, the story of Yaakov and Lavan constantly changed, but here they are totally equal. Omer, each of them will say to the other, Zeu chelko hamagia misha rishona lekach. This is a retroactive act. They said, you reach him from this moment, from the time of the death of the deceased. So you go, when they go back and do partnership, so they turned, everything turned that used to be originally before the divider. ורב נחמן אמר אפילו חלפו גדיים כנגדיים, טלאים כנגדיים, even they use this same species, which is goat for goat, lamb for lamb. אין אומר זה חלקו המגיע משעה ראשונה לכך. One brother said it not reach him from the first moment. because you cannot have the lemafria. So it means that Rav Nachman hold that it's breira, that you have the retroactive act. So how come the Mishnah allowed to those people who take a vow not to derive benefit from, for example, if you have a joint water, because if you have two partners that make this a vow for deriving benefit, they are prohibited to have anything to do with the partnership. So how come here you said differently? You have to say that by everyone, here you're talking about, everyone agreed that this cistern of foods come up in a public cistern is honorless cistern. But here is the one who picks a found article intending to acquire it on behalf of his friend. One sage of Nachman hold that the one who picks up a found object on behalf of his friends acquires it, and the other one said, Rav Sheshet said no, the one is not doing. So it belongs to the one who actually picked it up, and consequently the water is as a feet of one who draws it. Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim 397. If one borrows a coal from another on a festival, he may carry it only where the latter may walk. However, if a light or fire from another flames, he may carry the fire everywhere. Now, one, that's a Rambam Hilchot Shabbat chapter 18, one who carries out or brings a coal of any side from one domain to another on Shabbat is liable, but one who does it so with a flame is exempt. So that now we differentiate between Gachelet and Shalevet, although it's prohibited. We explain that there is difference between individual and a public cistern. So that's Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim 397. The water of privately owned cistern is as the feet of the owner, and the owner of the cistern that belongs to a town is as the feet of the inhabitants of the town. So the Tur is cite Rashba say that if one of the residents made for himself a joining of Shabbat boundaries, which is the Eruv, in one direction or another, the other inhabitants may carry the water only within the Shabbat boundary shared by all the inhabitants. But if it was hefker, if it was ownerless, its water is the feet of the whoever drowns from it. And we explained that in that sense, mileh v'natan lechavero, if one filled water for another from the ownerless cistern, the water is as the feet of one who draws the water, not the recipient. Basically follow the Rav Sheshet. We talk about a partnership of brothers. So that's the Rambam, Hilchot Shkalim, chapter 3. Brothers who are also partners are exempt from the animal type if they have joint ownership in a manner that renders them liable to pay the kalbon, we explained during the show. And if one lifts up a found item, that's Shulchan Aruch Shel Mishpat 269, if one if one lifts up a found item on behalf of his friend, the friend acquires it. In other words, you can do it from one person for the other.
Malachai Yeshuloim, Malachai